Hello again and welcome to Arch Eats. My name is George Mahey.
I'm Cheryl Bear.
Today we want to talk about what to throw on the old grill, on the old Rusty Weber out in the backyard, specifically the bratwurst.
Yes, St. Louis has a rich bratwurst culture.
We could have picked anything. We chose the bratwurst, and today we'll talk to a local expert on the subject. And then we'll even throw out a few places you can get a really good bratwurst in town. And we'll end up with a micro rant about buns for a bratwurst, specifically the unhinged ones, the ones that have split in two. Everybody can identify with that, and you know what I'm talking about.
I do. The ones that are too big, too this, too that.
And it ends up being too messy.
This episode of Arch Eats is sponsored by South Grand Cultural Alliance.
But first, it's what I can't stop thinking about this week. I know what yours is, Cheryl. It's right up the street from us.
Yes, it is Sabroso, the new Mexican restaurant that just opened up in Maplewood. They have an original St. Anne location. This is their second one. St. Anne opened in 2021. Their cochinita pibil is one of my favorite dishes in St. Louis, period. But the thing I can't stop thinking about is they finally have margaritas. And their margaritas are, I'm going to say, I would definitely put them in like top 2, 3 of my favorite margaritas, if not my favorite in town, thanks to fresh squeezed juice. They squeeze the juice fresh for everything, for their grapefruit juice, for their lime, anything that involves lemon. It's excellent. And they were not able to have a liquor license at their first place because of where it's located. It's by a church. So it was worth the wait. You are not going to have a better margarita in town.
Can't beat that endorsement.
Not at all.
So the thing I can't stop thinking about is an appetizer without a name. It's so new it hasn't even been named yet.
Without a name?
No, it's going on the menu at Rosé by Pinot. It'll be on by the time listeners hear this. I got a sample of it the other night, and it was just ambrosial. It's you've got a big smear of mascarpone cheese, and on top of that, roasted olives, capers, some celery hearts, and there's some agrodolce sauce below that.
Wow.
So you've got this sweet and sour thing going, these roasted vegetables and olives, and this mascarpone cheese, which is sweeter and creamier than your standard Philadelphia cream cheese. They serve it with some oblong lavash crackers that they make there. And I'm telling you, this is the perfect appetizer. It's the perfect little tasty treat while you're sitting there nursing your Aperol spritz.
Yes, it sounds so indulgent.
It's just, I can't, it's so incredible. It would be great on a charcuterie platter. It would be great on an individual charcuterie platter. Anyway, it'll be on whatever the name of it is, it'll be on the menu at Rosé by Pinot soon. And it's a great restaurant, and check it out. We'll be right back.
Get ready for the South Grand Fall and Music Fest on Saturday, September 21st. From 11 a.m. to 6 p.m., explore over 70 vendors offering handmade crafts, vintage finds, and boutique treasures. And the fun doesn't stop there. You can enjoy free face painting, balloon art, and DIY crafts all along South Grand Boulevard from Arsenal to Humphrey Street. And if you're a music lover, the party continues at Ritz Park until 8 p.m. For more details, visit southgrand.org/events. And now, back to the show.
So that was our appetizer course for today. We're going to get into the main course, and it's bratwurst.
The meat of the matter.
Yes. And no one better to help us with this discussion than Jim LeGrand, who's with us today, owner of LeGrand's Market and Catering, which has been family-owned and operated in St. Louis Hills for 3+ dozen years. LeGrand's, it's a great place. One of those charming, increasingly rare places that used to occupy nearly every street corner in cities like ours. And it became a gathering place, really, that's known for its, 50 sandwiches? I stopped counting at 50. But also for its complete butcher shop, which is where our guest comes in. Welcome, sir, and welcome to the worst episode of Arch Eats. I was dying to say that.
You couldn't help yourself, could you?
If I knew I was going to have to whip out my dad jokes, I would have brought lists of those too.
LeGrand's offers a literal butcher shop worth of meats that you could speak to, but let's dial it down to bratwurst. Let's start at the beginning. What makes a brat different than a hot dog and other sausages?
It's all seasonings. Your Italian sausage is made up of a group of seasonings that are just from that region of Italy. Germany is the one who came up with the original bratwurst. They've changed a lot over the years.
But you guys kind of put a little spin on it in the mid 80s. Bratwursts have been around for a long time, but
Right.
but not at LeGrand's.
This is why we had to have you on here, because here I am doing a bratwurst episode and have to just come out and admit I don't typically care that much for bratwurst. I know. I love your bratwurst. And in talking to you, I know there's a very specific reason for that because of those seasonings we talk about.
Right.
But that's why we just wanted you to dig into, the history of the LeGrand's bratwurst, because as George was alluding to, it was kind of accidental. It's really taken on a special character. And I feel like it's got this cult following of maybe people who aren't that into them. So you've just got to dish on the story. You've got to tell us.
Thanks, man. You really set me up.
I love it. I know.
You got me
I'm
on
telling
a
you.
high pedestal there. The biggest thing about our brats is they really don't taste like anybody else because we don't use the seasonings that are in traditional bratwurst. A long time ago in the late 70s, my old boss, Mr. Binder, who was a great guy, had a display of sausage seasonings. Make your own sausage at home out of ground beef.
Ground beef.
And got
not
a ground
pork.
beef.
Okay.
Yeah, and they didn't sell. So he didn't like there was a product sitting there not making the money. So he decided that we were going to try to use it up and we were going to make a sausage out of it. Well, it just so happens that day that the trimmings we were using were kind of fatty.
Mm-hmm.
So we put some of the seasonings in there and we added a little bit extra of something else. And he decided that it was too fat to call pork sausage. So he says, bratwurst is fatty. We're going to call it bratwurst.
And there it is.
That's how that started. So we started using up all that seasoning until it was all gone. It took about 4 months.
Okay.
And then we were faced with the problem of not having a bratwurst recipe to,
'Cause you relied
carry
on
this
that.
on because
Yeah.
the sales were going through the roof.
So people loved them right away.
So that's when we had to come up with the right copy of what that seasoning packet was.
Is that a secret, or are you going to tell us what's in the seasoning?
Of course, I can't tell you all the ingredients, but it's a pork sausage base seasoning, and we have some sweetness in there along with some garlic. The biggest thing that we don't have in there are the traditional spices that I was talking to you about, like the nutmeg and the ginger.
And mace. Mace is a big one, isn't it?
A lot of people do
Yeah.
use mace, and it bothers me too. We don't do any of that. I'm not an ingredient scientist here, but I do know that some seasonings don't do well if they're frozen. I believe nutmeg and mace are both ones that don't. Also, in traditional bratwurst, they can have soy protein powder, which is powdered milk. They can have eggs also. I don't think those freeze very well.
But it's like a texture issue
It's
too,
definitely
isn't it?
it's a tacky texture
Yeah,
issue.
yeah.
But that's what's in a traditional bratwurst.
So in some ways, yours is more like what's in it than what's not in a way that maybe what people are responding to.
Right.
Maybe if they don't care for those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do have to tell everybody, just because you don't like bratwurst, that's when I give them a sample of this, and they all come back with a smile on their face. So
Oh, yes.
yeah, it's pretty fun.
So we've got the seasoning, but what else is important in putting together a superior brat? It has to be a certain fat percentage, I'm guessing. There's got to be, I would think, a certain coarseness to the grind.
It's
some of them are
unbelievable, all of the factors that go into this.
Wow.
Again, we've had almost 40 years of doing this and trial and error and feedback from customers and things like that. So we're pretty fortunate to know all we do now. And it was trial and error, a lot of things. We do have a certain grind that we use on our sausage. It's not a coarse grind and it's not a fine grind. A lot of things like hog casings. There's all sorts of different products available. And if you buy the inexpensive ones, guess what? Your sausage is going to reflect it. So
let me stop you right there. Talk about hog casings. They call them hand-twisted brats, and it's because of the casing that they're twisting, right?
Well, not necessarily. A hand-twisted sausage is somebody who's still doing it the old world way, which is what we do. We do have a stuffer now that helps us stuff it electrically. It's got a motor. The reason why I don't have any new shoulder. I mean, I had both new shoulders now.
Oh my goodness.
But the hand twisted is still the man physically or the woman physically sitting there and making them the perfect length and twisting them one way and then the other. And we do, 1,000 pounds a week sometimes.
Good grief.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of
That's
twisting.
a lot of twisting the night away.
Oh my gosh. The day,
Twisting the day,
afternoon, all of
Yeah,
that.
right.
So are
Right.
these, did you say these are all hog casings? They're
Yes.
natural, not artificial
We
casings?
use all natural hog casings. I'm not a fan of the artificial collagen casings. I don't think they're as easy to work with. The only problem with the real casings is there's different textures to a casing. You know,
Yeah.
it's thinner on one end, it's thicker on another one. That's why you have to do the hand twist, because you know exactly how much pressure to apply to twist it.
So it's kind of like an art. I mean, it's almost like playing an instrument, I would think, like
Yeah.
you have to get a feel for
You
it.
absolutely have to get a
Yeah.
feel for it. Yeah.
Do you make all the bratwursts?
Do I? I used to. Now I have my brother doing
You've got
it.
2 new shoulders. I
got
figure you're
all-
ready
Yeah,
to go.
right.
I'm telling you, I'm a cyborg. I've got my younger brother Rob doing it now a lot with my son, and we have another guy Roger. He's a sausage guru. He's involved in every batch, but we only have 3 people making it, so everybody's half a cup isn't the same.
Oh, wow.
So we,
That's
we,
funny.
we do have a pretty strict about the consistency of
Yeah.
our product.
Well, and your son, he's kind of one of the people, this is something George and I were curious about. He's one of the people who's come up with all of these really creative concoctions. I mean, you look at your
Yeah.
list of offerings and they're pretty extensive. And I know he's been instrumental.
He has
In
been
a lot of
really
that.
instrumental in 2 of our biggest sellers besides the regular bratwurst is the super hot brats and the brown sugar pineapple brats. Brown sugar pineapple is a work of art. It took a lot of testing different products, different dehydrated pineapples from all around the world to get that sausage to where we wanted to put our name on it.
Wow. That
And it's a
sounds
great
delicious.
seller. It's a fantastic product. Kids to adults love it.
Do you still make the one that's made with cream of mushroom soup?
We do. That's called
That's
the
an odd ingredient
it's
for a
a
bratwurst.
mushroom and Swiss brat. We use a slower melt Swiss cheese with that, just like our other cheeses and our other super hot brats. We use a cheese that is a lower moisture content, so it doesn't melt so fast.
Which is important. Otherwise,
Very
it just
important.
runs out.
Otherwise, you got a mushy mess.
Yep.
But yeah, that mushroom Swiss is delicious. We use, instead of water to mix the sausage, every batch has a little bit of water in it, and that
Mhm.
one we use cream of mushroom soup. So it's got a nice punch of mushroom flavor. And
So how many different stock varieties do you have, and how many specialty flavors do you have?
we make about 7 or 8 different brats, and I could make 100 of them. But when you have that many, you're basically selling the same thing with one different ingredient.
Right.
So we kind of try to stick to just a group of 5. Our biggest seller is our regular bratwurst, and then we have a cheddar with the slow melt cheddar cheese in it, bratwurst. And again, all of these bratwursts are all the same seasoning. So the only thing that changes is these couple things that we put in. We have one that's a great sausage called a super hot brat. It has dehydrated jalapeno flakes, which was another one that we had to
Ooh.
really work with to try to find the right product.
Yeah.
And it's got cayenne, it's got super hot pepper cheese. It's got a lot of things going on.
Gosh,
My
that sounds
son,
delicious.
his latest one that he just came up with is really different. It's called a cowboy brat. And what he did, we were making pit beans in the store with our new smoker we got in our back room. And he made a big batch of pit beans that were delicious. So he took those pit beans with the bacon and the onion and the smoke, and he found out just the right percentage to mix with our regular bratwurst, and he stuffed it in a casing.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, that
Yeah.
sounds
It's
out
real-
of this world.
everything's there in one little
Wow.
casing. You don't
So
even need a fork.
Is that a stock item, or is that
Yes,
something
that is
that's
a stock item.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've
and-
never heard of such
The
a thing.
sky is the limit with the bratwurst.
We
I'm
do. We
telling
have
ya.
we have a lot of them, and we'll feature different ones at different times. We make English bangers sometime.
Oh, didn't you have someone from South Africa who
Yeah.
requested a special sausage?
We did. It's called boerwurst, and it's usually made with antelope and pork. And it's
Kind of hard to come by around here.
Yeah,
ain't it?
right. A little bit.
We just use really lean pork. I'll talk to you about that in a second. But it's a delicious recipe. We don't have it all the time.
Mhm.
I made some after your last article.
Yes.
And it all sold out right away. But yeah, and the nice thing is if somebody wants a batch, we can make a batch as small as 10 pounds.
Oh, wow.
So we'll sell half of it and then sell that customer.
So have you ever had someone come to you with a wild idea for
all
what
the
they'd
time.
love to do? And will you execute on it if they'll do 10
Usually-
pounds?
No, usually not.
Oh,
Because
no.
some of them are crazy. Some of them are just nuts. And I can't even find them in all of my sausage books that I have. So
Wow.
I'm like, this was somebody's grandpa who made this thing up and gave it a name. I'm not gonna hang it in a garage for 6 months and then sell it to you.
In Germany, bratwursts come in all kinds of different sizes,
They
but
do.
here they tend to look all the same. I don't see any foot-long bratwursts, for instance, right? So are they all standard
Yeah.
size at your place?
Germany, at our place there is. In Germany, they're 8 inches long. They're a little bit longer. And if you find somebody who says they're making a traditional bratwurst, it will always be 8 inches long.
Too big for the bun.
Too
Right.
big for the bun. We make ours 3 to a pound, which are still big.
That's
but
a big
again,
one.
we're using hog casings. It's a 40 millimeter hog casing. So it's a big sausage, kind of like the size of a Polish sausage. So we keep them 3 to a pound. They're about 5 to 6 inches long.
Now, you were talking about pork and the quality of pork that goes
Yes.
in. That's obviously a big factor.
It's a huge factor. We try to use Duroc. Duroc is a super high end pork, and the Iberian Duroc, you have to have a specialty store to sell because your pork steaks would be like $12 a pound.
Wow.
It's delicious, but now they've come up with a way to breed the Duroc hogs with Jersey Reds, and so they call it a Duroc blend. And we're able to buy that boneless from Mittendorf right here in St. Louis. They have it brought in just for us and a few other people that like pork ribs and things like that. They use the Duroc blend pork ribs for high-end pitmasters and things like that. For years and years and years in the Midwest, all you saw was the American Yorkshire hog, which is predominantly what Iowa makes. But now in the past 10 or 15 years, the meat industry has changed so much. We have, we would have never been able to have a Kobe hamburger 20 years ago or, just all of these. But now all these great brands of meat are available. But it was a huge improvement when they started doing that Duroc Jersey blend.
So the flavor is just that much more intense
Flavor's delicious.
with
Yes.
these heritage breed hogs.
Right. And smaller butcher shops like myself, you will see that your sausage is a lot cleaner.
Mhm.
I know for a fact that when they prepare this in larger amounts, they don't really worry about pulling out something that doesn't look just perfect we're really big into that. Our sausage is about as clean as you can get.
At your store, I know you sell, all these great sandwiches. Do you sell a bratwurst on a bun,
We
or
do.
is it?
Yeah, that's up in the deli. We have them cooked every day. We have those available up by the sandwich counter. So you could just order that, walk in and order that if you want.
How many different kinds can you walk in? Because I'm getting kind of
Only
hungry
one.
right
I
now.
know. I didn't have breakfast today,
Only
so
one. We only cook the regulars up there.
Okay.
Every now and then we'll cook a big pan of the super hots for football season, and guys just don't seem to care what they put in their stomach on that day.
right. Exactly. It's like how much you can injure yourself, it seems like.
Yeah, Jim didn't bring us any, so I'm
I
really
right
getting
now.
hungry for lunch.
I was planning on it. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, we might have to make a pit stop.
So so we've got the raw brat, but can you do anything else to it? Are people pre-smoking brats, or are there any other methods that are used in the production of a brat that we might not know about?
If you're going to smoke bratwurst,
Is it still a bratwurst?
it is, but when you smoke at low temperatures, you're supposed to have a different curing agent inside the meat. So it inhibits bacteria growth and things like that. Some guys will smoke as low as 90 degrees, which, they're doing a cold smoke, which isn't really good for that meat, and you can get sick from it. So if you're going to smoke bratwurst, you need to really, I don't like to tell people to do that because they need to have this ingredient called Prague powder, which is what they'll put in dry cured salamis.
Oh, okay.
Things like that. Anything you're going to smoke at a low temperature is supposed to have that in there, and we don't. We don't put anything in there that we don't have to.
Mhm.
So we kind of tell people just to do their grilling at the right temperature. If you're going to smoke it at least at 145, 155, so that there's a little bit more heat there. But my favorite way to do it is to go ahead and grill it up on the grill over medium heat, and when it just starts to turn brown and black, I'll pull it off and I'll have my big cast iron pizza pan on the Weber
Ooh, this
or
is a
the
good
gas
tip.
grill. And I have my beer and onions that are already sauteed together, and I just let them bubble in that beer and onions, and the casing gets really, really soft. And it's just and you know how sometimes you'll have like a mini air pocket inside the sausage? Well, when you do that in that skillet with the beer and the onions, it kind of all just gets nice and tight.
Now, some people will pre-boil a brat. Is that something you do or you'd recommend?
No.
It sounds like you've got your way.
Yeah.
I'm not of that school, but boy,
I'm
a
not either.
lot of people in St.
Yeah.
Louis do that.
So there's a sausage called knockwurst
Yes.
that we do that with. We do make knockwurst too. I just don't have it made right now, so I don't want to talk about it too much. We've got a busy weekend.
Sure.
But I don't think I would advise that.
Doesn't sound good, but
No,
I see it in a lot of cookbooks. I see it in a lot of
I can't
home cooks' brains.
I can't say it doesn't work because I've never tried it, but maybe somebody else has.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, I don't think I will.
You talked about all these crazy different varieties and flavors. Are there any that just did not work?
Oh,
did
yeah.
you try a couple that said, we thought it would be good, but it's not?
You try to forget all those,
Let's dredge them back up. I'm always curious about that.
My first flop was Jelly Belly brats.
Oh,
I made them for Easter.
No.
So Jelly Belly, they're a hard jelly bean. They're small, so I thought, they'll probably hold their shape.
Oh, I'm actually shaking my head. You can't see.
I bet it was colorful.
And so now the way that I made the sausage is incredible. I have the sausage that I make. It's called a French sausage.
Mm-hmm.
And it's delicious. It's got cinnamon and sugar and allspice and it's a perfect pancake sausage. So I decided that I'm going to take that and I'm going to put the Jelly Bellies in it and sell it for an Easter sausage. Well, what happened? It was delicious.
Sounds great.
It was
sounds
sweet,
fun.
but when you cut it up, the Jelly Bellies got like 4 times their size and the meat looked like it was almost spoiled on the inside.
No.
It was crazy look.
Oh, no.
It looked like a big rainbow mess.
But the taste worked.
The taste was good, but
wow.
You can't just have the taste. You got to have the eye appeal.
Not a big seller.
No,
so
we kind of, I gave away all the rest to people I knew. And then my next bomb was I made an Irish banger for St. Patrick's Day, of course. And I'm thinking, all right, I got to make this green. I'm looking at all these ideas online and on recipe books. So the one guy said, I take kale, and I put kale into food processor, and it totally ruined it.
Oh,
totally
no.
ruined it. I'm not a fan of any kind of fried kale or anything to begin with. It ruined my Irish banger.
Yeah, you get your fiber, and that's about it.
Yeah,
exactly.
So that was my 2 flops.
Oh,
I'm sure there was probably more, but I blocked them out.
Condiments. Now, George and I are not criminals, so we do not put ketchup on our hot dogs.
Or on our brats.
Or
should we?
I mean, you talked about the beer and onions. What is your prepared garnish, all of that?
I love a brown kraut on a brat.
Ooh.
Now, I didn't research this. I don't know how they saute the sauerkraut. I think they might just do it with a little bit of, what is that seed? Caraway seed in a skillet with a little bit of oil, and it turns brown instead of white. I love that on a bratwurst with a good brown
That sounds
mustard.
wonderful.
Caramelization going on there.
It is.
Oh, wow.
It is. And when you toss in those onions from that skillet, it's really good.
Oh, earthy and funky and a little pungent that kind of cuts through.
Right.
Do you mustard? Are you a mustard
I'm a brown
person?
mustard guy, yeah.
Okay.
Really popular item is these people are buying the different varieties, the super hot, the cheddar, and the pineapple, and they just toothpick them on a platter and put them out for a party.
Yeah, I could see that.
A lot of people are
with
doing
some
that.
mustard on the side.
Absolutely,
probably.
with different mustards.
Yeah, some
Brown,
German
yellow,
mustard,
yeah,
the Dusseldorf mustard. That's
Yeah.
that's the fun part of it.
Right.
There's as many mustards as there are brats, I think. And
Oh man, a nice bowl of pretzel nubs in the middle of
oh
it.
baby, Jim LeGrand, the Bratmaster in town, the head butcher at LeGrand's.
Yeah,
Been around for a day or two, and there's things I thought I knew about bratwurst, but there's all kinds of things I didn't know. Anyway, I hope you picked something up today. Hey, thanks for joining us, Jim.
You're welcome.
We're going to leave here and come and see you
Come
for
on.
lunch.
Yes, exactly.
Come on over. We'll talk bratwurst.
We'll be right back. This episode of Our Cheats is supported by Sugar and Slice Bakery on Main. This locally owned bakery believes in the magic of homemade treats. Their bakers use only the finest ingredients to craft delicious, mouth-watering desserts that are perfect for any occasion. From birthdays to weddings, or just a simple treat to brighten your day, they've got your sweet tooth covered. Stop by the bakery on Main Street in St. Charles or visit their website at sugarandsliceonmain.com.
And now, back to the show.
Before we leave the subject of bratwursts, Cheryl, you wrote an article in St. Louis Magazine for the best places in town to buy bratwursts and sausages and hot dogs. I mean, there were 18 places, and all of them have their specialties. Kenrick's, Menino's, Wennemann's. You've got a couple favorites, too.
I do. And there were so many. I think my takeaway from that is, we all know the usual suspects and they're excellent and we should know them. But I really found a lot of kind of hidden gems. So I hope people will take that as a reference point and maybe try some fun things from places they haven't heard of yet.
One of my favorites is Bolliard's, which really doesn't need any introduction for most St. Louisans, but their secret there is using Berkshire, Yorkshire, and red wattle hogs, all these heritage breed hogs, which basically give incredible flavor, like we were talking about.
Their pork is just extraordinary there across the board.
It makes such an incredible difference, but then they double down and they do some unusual flavors. They have a coconut curry brat. Stop for a second and think about that. And they've got a Swiss brat that's got this smooth texture that's spiced with some ginger and nutmeg. So he's got the basic brats. There's always a couple unusual ones. Another place out in Fenton, and there's a location in Ellisville, is called the Corner Butcher. They do several fresh varieties, but don't overlook the freezer section because they've got some gourmet flavors in there. There's a spinach feta, there's a raspberry chipotle, even a pizza and a buffalo pork version. So you walk in there and you see the fresh case, but don't ignore the freezer case.
Yeah, they have wonderful offerings there. I was excited to see all of those. I was excited to see so many different things on this list, but I think if I had to say just a couple can't misses on here, Paul's Market. I'm a North County girl, so I have to give a special shout out to Paul's in Ferguson.
It's kind of got that LeGrand vibe going on up there, too.
It's been around forever, and they have some really wonderful bratwursts there. I love their just classic beer brat there. They also have a bourbon and brown sugar one, which is extraordinary. Cheddar, jalapeno, those standards. And that's one of those, they do it the old way. These are the recipes they have been using since they opened in 1959. So you're going to get a classic experience. However, maybe even more classic, and I think this is a place that anyone who truly loves bratwurst, sausage, and St. Louis history has to go to. It's a must visit. Piketowski's is a North St. Louis institution. It's been around since the 40s. It harkens back to when that part of town had a very vibrant Polish community. And there were several of these shops there. And this is kind of like the last one standing. And you are going to feel like you have just walked in to Poland. I mean, it is as classic as it gets. They have a lot of wonderful sausages there. They have their traditional bratwurst. I think that's just the way to go. Apparently, this place is so well thought of that the Pope made a visit here when he was back in St. Louis. Gosh, what was that, the late 90s or something?
That's some serious trivia.
I mean, if the Polish Pope is coming to your spot, you know you're doing it right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's all these butcher shops, which are great. But again, if you don't want to take these home and cook them yourself, there are some, you don't serve a lot of them around town, but bratwursts are available at Urban Chestnut Brewing Company. They've got a G&W brat, made at G&W.
Another classic.
With Zwickel beer, which is great. They have a bratwurst at the Old Rock House in Soulard. Gus's and the places like Pretzel Boys serve a bratzel, and it's pretty good.
It's like peak German cuisine right there.
And even Whoopi sells a bratwurst. I've never had it. I've never made it beyond the Chicago dog, but they've got one there. So if you don't want to grill them up, there's a couple places in town to go to. And that, my friends, brings us to today's micro rant, and it involves bratwurst buns. And Cheryl and I were talking about this earlier. When the bun becomes detached and you've got two sides, you could say it's no big deal until the bratwurst gets on there and the condiments end up on your shirt, and the sausage is like trying to escape the
flips
two
around.
buns.
Yeah, you have to wrangle it. You don't want to wrangle your food. You just want to eat it.
Right. It could end up on the floor. Have you ever had that? Does that drive you crazy?
Oh, it drives me crazy. I would say the detached bun drives me crazy. Also, I find myself with a lot of different sausages, I'm pulling off probably like a third of the bun to get that proper ratio.
You need the proper bun, and if the bun splits in two and you've got two pieces, make breadcrumbs out of it.
Exactly.
Turn it into croutons for your Caesar salad, but give us a proper cradle. That's all we ask. That's it for this week. Be sure to follow us and share with your friends. And we always provide links in the show notes for everything you heard about today. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and follow along on Instagram at St. Louis Mag. And feel free to give us a follow personally at George Mahey and Cheryl A. Bear.
If you loved what you heard, show us some love by rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. And if you're hungry for even more content, you can subscribe to our dining newsletters for the freshest coverage on the local restaurant and culinary scene.
Best dishes, and see you next time.